This afternoon, a coalition of clergy convened in Washington, D.C. to protest the U.S.-Israel war on Iran and Lebanon. The coalition staged this Moral Monday rally to object to the Trump regime continuing to funnel billions and billions of dollars to the war. And instead, they're calling on them to end the war and redirect this massive spending that's going to the military right now, redirect it to people in need. Take a look at this clip.
And Senate have failed to pass on March 4th, on April 15th, and April 17th, joint resolutions to restrict Trump's war powers in this illegal and unholy war. The slim Republican majorities in both chambers have chosen to stay in lockstep with the president through nearly 2 months of an unholy war. By this coming Friday, May 1st, the War Powers Act requires Congress to act affirmatively to continue waging war. Neither Speaker Johnson nor Senate Leader Thune have announced votes on a war powers resolution, and Trump has given no indication that he will comply with the law. That is why we must deepen our commitment to nonviolence witness, and why we're calling, beginning today, 1,000 clergy and others to send this declaration directly to every member of Congress.
And joining me now is Jonathan Wilson Hargrove, our friend, spiritual writer, preacher, and community cultivator, chair of the board of repairers of the breach. It is always good to see you.
Good to see you, Joy.
Let's talk about this. So this protest happened today. Walk us through what happened. Were people arrested? Where do we stand?
Well, you heard Bishop explaining the context that we're in. All distractions aside, there is a deadline mandated by law, 60 days after unilaterally, of his own choice, analysis, whatever he calls it, waging this war. If Congress does not act, the president has no power to wage war. And he was noting that there have been votes in both the House and the Senate to try to limit those powers. Those have narrowly been defeated. But if Congress doesn't do something by Friday, then this is an entirely illegal war. Now, we have been maintaining since Monday of Holy Week that it is an immoral and unjust war. And Pope Leo has made this very clear, I think most famously. He's simply teaching the just war doctrine of the church, which says that any war of choice is unjust, is unholy. But furthermore, and I think this is important in terms of the timing, he made a direct appeal to members of the church in the United States to call a petition their members of Congress to demand peace. That was his word, demand peace. Mm-hmm. When Trump made the social media post about annihilating a civilization. And that is very specifically a response to another part of just war doctrine. It comes out of Vatican II, which says that any total war is entirely immoral, cannot be sanctioned by the church under any circumstances. It's actually in that document that the church produced. It was a gathering of bishops that happened over 2 years in Rome, really about what the teaching of the church means in the modern world. They thought about the whole just war doctrine, and they said that any total war in a nuclear era would necessarily be unjust, and that no member of the church could support it. So when a threat of total war came from the U.S. president, the Pope was speaking as the lead teacher of the church to all its members to say that they had to do anything they could to demand peace. So that's what Moral Mondays are doing. That Catholic social teaching and just war doctrine is one moral tradition, but really any moral tradition leads us to oppose this kind of war of choice and this sort of threat to whole civilizations. And so Moral Mondays have been directed at the White House and at members of Congress to make this appeal to demand an end to the war making and to reinvest that money in the real needs that are here at home. And today's announcement was really a moral escalation of that demand. There are 266 members of Congress that have not supported this effort to rein in the president's war powers. We are calling on moral leaders and clergy to have gatherings at as many of those offices as possible in communities, and to use those gatherings not only to petition their members of Congress to end this war, but also to use those gatherings as really nonviolence workshops to have an upsurge of nonviolence and of using all of the tools of nonviolence. I mean, voting is an essential tool of nonviolence. You were talking about voting earlier. But there are other things that we have to do. This coming Friday, there's a mass withdrawal of economic support of normal participation. That's also a nonviolent tactic. Civil disobedience is a nonviolent tactic. We are calling people to use all of the available tactics, including for young people. And this is the final thing I'll say on this, is that this year is the first year in U.S. history when 18-year-olds are automatically registered in the Selective Service. And so we are saying that all of these Moral Mondays are places where 18-year-olds can go and publicly make known their conscientious objection to war, and use that to register that they, while being automatically registered, they're not going to go into a potential draft to support this immoral war. The conscientious objector status is legally protected in the United States, and you have to make that public. So we're inviting young people to come to Moral Mondays and make that conscientious objection public.
That is a huge, huge, huge thing, because I think that people don't understand the consequences if you don't formally acquire conscientious objector status. You can lose your access to student loans. If you go by the Muhammad, back in the day, Muhammad Ali was arrested,
Right.
and went to jail saying, I was not going to go and fight Vietnamese people who didn't do me anything. He didn't do anything to me, and I'm certainly not going to do it. They never called me the M word. They never did anything to me, and I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
And had to give up his belt, his championship belt. But the idea that young people today are being conscripted without their unwillingly, without their consent, into a military industrial complex that is fighting in an immoral way. Even, there shouldn't be war at all, but these are being fought with AI tools that are choosing little girls' schools as targets, with AI tools that are allowing Israel and the United States to wipe entire Lebanese towns off the map, to wipe effectively Gaza off the map. I saw a video over the weekend of some little kids trying to have school outside because their school is gone. All the schools are gone. All the universities are gone. All the hospitals are gone. What do you make of this moment, Jonathan? Because you have Bibi Netanyahu, who constantly uses the Bible to try to justify his genocidal policies. He's constantly quoting the Bible. But now he's facing a pope who, I like the previous pope, but this pope throws that Bible down on the table every day and runs it right back at him and Trump. And he's like, he's not being mean. He's very soft-spoken. He's like, I got this Bible too, and I'm going to use it for what it's really meant for.
He has the Bible and he has the teaching of the church. This is not his personal reading of the Bible. This is a deliberative process that many people have participated in over generations. To go back to the issue of conscientious objection, it was also an issue that the Second Vatican Council took up. So in addition to condemning total war, the Second Vatican Council also said that the church affirmed conscientious objection as something that should be legally protected. And so, while Muhammad Ali was doing that as a good Muslim, good Catholics have the authority of the church to tell them that there is a place for people of conscience to come forward and say, I will not engage in this violence. I'm not refusing to serve my community. I'm not refusing to be a citizen. I'm saying that I believe in the power of nonviolence. And my conscience tells me that I have to prepare to use all of the tools of nonviolence. So that's why we believe this is a time for intensifying moral struggle and really like we had in the early 1960s in this country. We need nonviolence workshops in communities all across the country, churches where people are coming together, mosques where people are coming together, synagogues where people gather, community centers where people consider what can we do with the moral traditions that we have inherited and the power of love to resist the evil that we see in front of
Mm.
us. And that is a strength that I think we've seen this president doesn't know what to do with.
Right.
He's apoplectic in response to a pope who doesn't have to yell, who doesn't have to scream, who's very measured, but who is speaking in moral authority. Moral authority is stronger than the strongest strongman. And I think that's why Donald Trump doesn't have any idea what to do with it.
The other thing about it that I'm seeing, and Moral Mondays really does epitomize this, is it's a beautiful ecumenism, right? It's been a long time since we've been able to hear the clarity of Muslim voices, Catholic voices, Protestant voices, Baptist voices, Kojic voices, all really working together. I mean, really probably since the Vietnam War. I think you did see it a little bit during the war against Iraq under George W. Bush. I did remember seeing that kind of ecumenism, but that is back big time, right? I mean, you're seeing, Moral Mondays is a mix of all faiths. And as you said, they're all speaking from the same Abrahamic playbook, and even people of no faith. It's everyone at the table together. And I think that actually is powerful.
Yes, indeed. In DC today, midday, in addition to Bishop Barber, who sits right in that Christian Church Disciples of Christ tradition, but the rabbi beside him blowing the shofar.
Yep.
That's a great moral tradition. Also, I just came from the Moral Monday at Senator Tom Tillis's office in Raleigh, North Carolina, and we had Catholics, we had Episcopalians, we had Methodists, we had Baptists. We're North Carolina. Methodists and Baptists are all over, but also people who no particular faith tradition, but deep matter of conscience for them. People who came, we had two powerful veterans share their stories. I didn't learn about their faith traditions, but they were sharing from their experience of being sent to war, one in Iraq and one in Vietnam, both of them saying, it's terrible what happens to the people that you're sent to, but it's also terrible what happens to the people who are sent, and testified about that in a powerful way. So these spaces are, you're right, they're incredibly important ecumenical spaces for the broad spectrum of voices we have in a democratic society to share how our moral traditions call us together to the same resistance to this kind of evil.
What is next for Moral Mondays? You all came and you had this moment today. What's the ongoing work look like?
Well, we encourage people to go to the Repairers of the Breach website, breachrepairers.org, because there, as of today, you can find the litany that we're using to create these essentially nonviolence workshops outside of the offices of members of Congress. There are 266 members who have not agreed to any of the joint resolutions that have been voted on. We think every one of them needs a moral witness. And so we're encouraging people to reach out to their member of Congress, first learn where they are, right? This is the first step of nonviolence. Any nonviolent movement is committed to communicating with those we oppose. We want to hear from them and understand how they understand things and where they are. So reach out first, as we've been reaching out to Senator Tom Tillis here, and then plan a peace rally on May 11th at any office of a member of Congress who is not willing to oppose this immoral war. That's the next step. And as we prepare for those peace rallies across the country on May 11th, we're also encouraging the clergy and community leaders in our networks to reach out to those young people in our communities and invite them to participate and to use it as an opportunity to make their conscientious objection known at those public gatherings.
Well, I love this, and we would love to get the team TJRS folks involved and figure out ways that we can support what you guys are doing. And I am particularly, as a mother, my kids are not 18, but I think if you are a parent of young people that are military age and know that they've raised that age to 42. So when I mean young up to 42, because they have said they want all bodies all the way up into their 40s. And it's clear that they don't care enough about them to even tell us how many of them have been injured in the war that we're fighting. We don't know how many have been injured. We don't know how many are dead. We don't know anything about it. We just are told we need to be for it. And we do know, per NBC News reporting, that a lot more of our bases were destroyed than we were told. And I can tell you, I spoke with a source that was in United Arab Emirates who told us that, and it was a single source, so we couldn't go forward with it. But now NBC has effectively confirmed it. Our bases have been destroyed all over the Middle East, and that means people have been injured or died. Is there a final sort of word you can give us? How do we speak to our enlisted, our military brothers and sisters? Because many of them, they don't have a lot of choice. They're already in, but it's a bigger challenge voicing their objections. It's a bigger risk. What is the message of Moral Mondays to people who are already in the military?
Well, many Americans haven't paid attention to the selective service for decades since the Vietnam War because we haven't had an official draft. We've had a poverty draft.
Yes.
Right? The people who the military, and again, we use billions and billions of taxpayer dollars to do this recruiting, but the military is recruiting from poor and marginalized communities. And those are the people, people who I pastored here in this neighborhood when they were growing up. They are people who have, taken the job offer and are living on those military bases in the Middle East and other parts of the world. And we need to be honest about the fact that those are the people who are bearing the brunt of this reckless and immoral war making. Moral Mondays are really about communities taking responsibility for what's being done in our name. And we're saying that collectively, if we trust the power of nonviolence, we can come together and use all the tools of nonviolence to demand that this end. Like you said, for the children who are already engaged and those who will be drug into this, if we allow billionaires who wage war for their own profit to do whatever they want to do.
One of our favorite pastors, Jonathan Wilson Hartgrove. We appreciate you so much. It's always a pleasure to have you on. Please come back often, keep us apprised of it. And we want to get involved, particularly in educating those young people who are going to be conscripted. And many of them may not even know, because it's not like they're necessarily watching the news. So
Let's
we would
get
like
some
to,
of them on the Joy Reid show to say why they're conscientious objectors.
Please, say less. All you have to do, text, let me know when we can get them on, and we will clear space for them and for you and for Bishop anytime. Y'all are always welcome, your family. Thank you so much.
Bless you. Good to be with you.
Thank you so much, Pastor Jonathan Wilson Hartgrove. He's great. We love Bishop Barber, but we love both of them the same. We think they're both dynamic and incredible people. Those are the repairers of the breach leaders, and this is a big deal, you guys.